reason why we did it. We are, middle-aged ladies, and just because we are middle-aged doesn't mean that our lives have to stop. So we wanted to prove that actually, even though we are older, we can actually achieve anything if we put our minds to it. And I've always loved a challenge and to push myself. It would be a huge challenge, and I just wanted to just do it and show my children, like Fee did, that anything is possible as long as you try your best.
When you're doing something extreme, there's a gratitude to our bodies and that they can do this. Not everyone's going to row an ocean, but be thankful for everything your body can do.
This week on Make Movement Matter, I'm joined by two good friends of mine, Kerry and Fiona, who recently did something extraordinary. As part of a 4-woman team, they completed the world's toughest row, 3,000 miles across the Atlantic Ocean, unsupported, in just over 44 days. Neither of them were rowers when they signed up for this challenge, but they were united by a drive to prove that middle age is not a reason to slow down, and that movement, teamwork, and preparation can get you through even the wildest storms. In this conversation, we talk about the physical training, the mental toll, the joy and pain of life on board, and why they chose to row for mental health awareness. We also explore what they've learned about themselves and what they'll carry forward now that their feet are back on dry land. This episode is full of grit, humour, emotion and empowerment. I think you're going to love it. So, Kerry and Fiona, you are, well, Fee to me, you are two of my good friends from Oxfordshire. We've known each other quite a long time. But you haven't known each other that long. You were on the periphery of each other's lives and didn't quite realise it until, I believe, Fee said, I'm going to do this challenge. I think I'm going to set myself a challenge. And who can I find that will do it with me? So, Fee, how did you then come across Kerry before we say what it is?
Oh, we haven't said what the challenge is yet. Okay, so I've been thinking about the challenge for quite some time. And I thought about it internally for a long time before I spoke to anyone about it. And then I thought, okay, well, I need a few people to do this with me. And it's not the kind of thing where you walk into a coffee shop or a gym and go, hey, I'm doing this, who wants to? It takes a certain kind of person and commitment. But I was speaking to a few friends, and I spoke to our mutual friend, Mel, who is also a friend of yours, Wendy, and she said, you need to speak to my friend Kerry. And that was it. And when we were introduced, Kerry had actually already been thinking about doing this challenge, but hadn't.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and hadn't progressed. But she's a million ideas about what challenges she's going to do. This was just one on her list. But because I came to her and said, okay, and yeah, she was all over the idea, and it went from there.
I had to pass the interview though.
Did she really? She put you through your paces?
I mean, I've been thinking about it for quite a long time about and what it takes to really make this work. And we had one team member. Debs was already. I was already with Debs, and we were part of a team. And then we had already started discussions trying to get Dawn on board, and Dawn was sort of a tentative at this point when I started speaking to Kerry. But I think we already had quite clear ideas about what it took in reality, and the commitment. A lot of it was around the commitment. So you prepared for the commitment of this, because what we didn't want was someone dropping out quite close to the start, because then it's a no-go for everyone. So yeah, you passed.
Well done.
She passed. Oh, phew. In every way. So the challenge that a lot of people think about is something like running a marathon, or doing a 3-4 day walk that is in challenging environment. Or the worst one that I'd ever heard was Marathon des Sables, where is that 5 or 7 days, I can't remember, back-to-back marathons in the desert. And I've always just thought, wow, you have to really be made of strong stuff. So, Kerry, tell us what the challenge was that you took up.
Well, we rowed 3,000 miles across the Atlantic Ocean. That was the challenge.
Of course.
And why not?
And why not? It's there, so row it. And both of you were rowers beforehand or not?
I wasn't.
No, I mean, I'd rowed a little bit at college, but quite social rowing in reality. So no, we weren't rowers. And that's obviously it's an important element of what you do, but it's just one part of many things that it takes to cross an ocean. There's so many other factors involved.
Why? A lot of people, friends are asking, why do they want to do this? Because it isn't in them. They weren't the right type of people, but you were. So what was your why?
In all honesty, I wanted to do something really hard and to prove to myself that I could, and that really that sense that whatever you put your mind to, you can achieve it if you prepare, have the right support and people around you, and commit to it. So to a certain extent, I wanted to prove to myself, I've got 3 daughters, Kerry's got 3 children, and there is an element of role modeling and showing them that, even at our age, Kerry,
yes,
that these things are possible. And, as we reach a stage of life where people are going to the menopause and life becomes more challenging, it's like, that doesn't have to be a reason to not do things. And this was just our challenge, but we did want to put that message out there, and that links to our charities, which we'll sort of talk about in a bit. But, that sense that you can, with the right belief, the right support, you can do whatever it is that you want to take, and a certain stage in life doesn't have to define that.
Absolutely. I'd like to reiterate that, actually, because we are a certain age, middle-aged ladies.
Can you tell the audience what age you are?
I'm 51.
Well, I turned 50 when we were rowing, so I am 50. I was 50 in the middle of the Atlantic.
Yeah, which we didn't really celebrate that much, but we'll talk about that. Because we threw the bottle of Dom Perignon overboard.
Oh.
No, going back to the reason why we did it. We are, middle-aged ladies, and just because we are middle-aged doesn't mean that our lives have to stop. So we wanted to prove that actually, even though we are older, we can actually achieve anything if we put our minds to it. And I've always loved a challenge and to push myself. And this is just one thing that I just thought, wow, let's, it would be 40 to 50 days we were thinking that it would take. And we were we were in between that. But it would be a huge challenge. And I just wanted to just do it and show my children, like Fee did, that anything is possible. As long as you try your best, just do it. Just do whatever. And that's what we did.
Amazing. Well, you managed to also find 2 others who would. So Debs was also wanting to row for personal reasons. She wasn't a rower before. She'd done a little bit. Is that right?
Debs, she has done some club rowing, more than we had, actually.
Yeah.
But I think also she committed to that once she knew that she was going to do the Atlantic as part of her training program. And she had done a little bit she'd rowed around. This is how she met Dawn. So it's how the sort of team came together. She'd rowed around the north of Scotland. So she had a bit more idea than we did about what she was taking on.
We had no idea what we were taking on.
And is that on reflection you realise how little you did know beforehand?
In all honesty, I think I had a better idea than you did.
Yeah.
Well, I've sailed a bit, but kind of quite nice cruising sailing. But I did have, more of a sense, I think, of the ocean and what that would be like. And so I think I had a more realistic sense of what we were undertaking, but you can never fully prepare for that. No. Whereas Dawn, who rowed with us and was our skipper, this was actually her 5th ocean crossing. So she had a huge amount of experience, and that gave us quite a bit of comfort as well. So
yeah, I can imagine that you get a lot of confidence for someone who's been there and done it that many times, that they've come across things. And you had a wonderful social media account on Instagram while you're away that you had help with running. Obviously, you couldn't do it yourselves. And it was brilliant. The coverage was great, not just from the fact that we all had a regular check-in to see that you're still going. We also had the app that we could track you on. But that her messages, Dawn's particular messages on there, and some of the content that was on there showed that, yeah, she just had some great tips and little techniques and things that if you hadn't had that, you know, things would have been a lot harder. So I think that experience really, really helps. And actually, I hope you've written a lot of notes for the next time or for someone else's next time. So tell me a bit about life on board, because it's obvious that in the run up to it, you were nervous, but you were preparing hugely. You were doing masses and masses of training. And you did a few other things as well. Actually, yeah, talk about the sort of safety aspect, because you did quite a lot of training to understand the ocean, to understand what it could throw at you. Tell us a little bit about the kind of thing that you did to prepare.
Well, planning and preparation was key to all this. That's why we did so well, really. But I mean, Fee is probably the person to talk about this because she knows it more.
There you go.
Well, I mean, I think we all had different roles in the boat, and mine seemed to be general organizer of stuff. So there was a lot of the sort of weekends away training. So we'd spent a lot of time on the boat training. Obviously, Dawn was fantastic in that, because so that was just time getting to know the boat, understanding how everything works on the boat. You know, you have to make your own water, you have to generate your own power from solar, you have to be able to fix everything on the boat. So just really time on the boat, understanding the basic mechanics of the boat is really invaluable. So that was sort of practical training. But on the sort of more of the there's a certain number of courses that we did around sea survival, navigation skills. Obviously, you know, you've got to be able to navigate the boat. We're getting there's a lot of first aid. So Kerry was our designated first aider. There was VHF radio courses. We went on courses about how the water maker works, how all the electronics on the boat work. Because once you're out there, it is just you on your own. There's no support. So there's no boat beside us. There's no one bringing us food or, you know, helping us to fix things. It's just us. So you really do have to know all of those things inside and out. And, you know, just even things like part of the mandatory training. So because we did this as part of an event called the World's Toughest Row, they set some mandatory training standards for us, which was actually really helpful because it ensures that you've reached a minimum standard. But things like, you know, getting yourself back into the boat when it's capsized and how you're going to actually manage that. You know, these boats, they don't often capsize, but you do need to prepare that. How do you get the boat back upright when it prepares? What happens when you get a hole in the hull because you've been hit by a marlin? So we had like repair kits on board to plug holes and be able to fix the fiberglass. So we're pretty much, you know, all rounders.
Yeah, no, we had to go on an electrical course. We had to, you know, anything went wrong, we had to fix it. So, you know, any health conditions, any sort of nutritional problems, electrical faults, as Fee just said, you know, we had to deal with everything.
So, and I think a lot of people would fear the medical side, would fear ill health, and something happened to you, which, you know, really could be quite difficult. So I presume you had a huge medical kit, medical supplies on there with you as well. And there's just not much room for all these things. You know, not enough room in my head to even remember everything you've just said, let alone the actual physical side. But and obviously the boat will have got lighter and less in there as you ate your way through it, because as you say, you had to take all your food with you, which was interesting in itself. Tell us a bit about the process before you left with your food, because there was huge preparation in that, wasn't there?
Yeah, so we all had to make sure we had enough food. So I did a nutrition plan for everybody. So we had to eat probably about 4,500 calories a day. Yeah. In reality, that did not happen, because when you're on the boat, you don't feel like that much. And then, you know, and you have to choose correctly as well. So we all chose our food. So Fee made her own food. It was freeze dried or dehydrated food. So we all did we had our own food, but I on the boat did not like my food at all.
Oh no.
So I because I was trying to be a bit too healthy, So I would eat Dawn's and Deb's food. And all their chocolate as well. So so I was okay, but so because we had a huge variety of stuff on the boat as well, because we actually planned our nutrition quite well, we were able to be able to do that. And we had the water maker too, so that hydration is hugely important. But we planned everything meticulously beforehand. So I mean, it worked really well, didn't it?
Apart from you,
Apart from me, yeah.
But I mean, I think that was an interesting lesson for us because we're all, pretty nutrition conscious and wanted to fuel ourselves correctly. So the things that we probably thought we wanted to eat, actually, when you're feeling seasick and dehydrated and tired, actually, sometimes you just want Haribos.
Yeah.
Other brands are available. But
don't worry, it's not the BBC. Yeah, no, I can imagine, because we often are trying to sort of feed ourselves well in life, but we're not necessarily responding that well to how we feel. And when you're in that sort of more vulnerable and tough situation, how you feel is everything, isn't it? You're fueling your body, but you're also fueling how you feel and giving yourself that oomph to go on. So yeah, I can see that the chocolates would have come into it.
It's interesting actually, because even though we weren't eating enough calories how we should have done, we were still strong. We still actually, everybody had their shifts, everybody pulled their weight. We did everything we did right until the end. And it wasn't until afterwards really that probably felt like exhausted. I mean, we felt exhausted obviously throughout the whole thing, but we just kept going. And so it's interesting actually talking about nutrition and planning, because it was afterwards as well, actually coming back after the row and actually coming back into real life and actually eating properly again. Yeah, and it's actually sort of trying to get that back as well, because we all, as Fee said, we're all quite health conscious, we all eat well, but it's actually dealing with that afterwards too. So that was, I think for me, quite an interesting thing as well, trying to refuel yourself and getting back into being healthy and because we all lost weight. You lost about 2 stone, I think. Is that right?
I don't know.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
You all looked like you did.
Yeah, I lost over a stone. So, but nutritionally, we had all the food on board.
Yeah.
So we were eating, as much as we possibly could.
And that's where it is about, literally, the term fueling your body is absolutely right, because we often sort of disconnect food as our energy source, as the thing that is keeping us going. And the very fact that it kept you healthy, it kept you energized, it just shows that you did have the right balance.
Also, Wendy, it was one of the few pleasures that you look forward to.
I bet.
When you get to eat, so food becomes really central. You spend most of your time planning what you're going to eat on your
I absolutely. And so tell us then about the system. So you were doing a 3-hour shift system, is that right?
Yes.
So tell us how that worked in practice. There's 4 of you on the boat. It's a tiny little boat. Did you have sleeping pods at both ends or just one? And so I still can't do the maths as to who slept when and how.
Well, there were 2. There's 2 cabins either side of the boat, or front and back, and then 2 people in the front, 2 people in the back. So one person from the front will row, and then the one person on the back will row, and they will swap over after an hour and a half. So then you're always sort of doing this rotation. So I would row with Fee, and then I would row with Debs as well, and then they would row with Dawn as well. So I mean, you can
so it's a 3-hour. Everyone's rowing for 3 hours, and then everyone has rest, or it's not fully rest for 3 hours, but you're halfway through your shift, the other person swaps, so you get a variety of people that you row with. And then on your off shift, you have, so the idea is you sleep, but it's a 3-hour off shift, but you probably never get more than 2 hours sleep, because in that time you've got to wash, you've got to eat, you've got to go to the loo, you've got to make water, you've got to clean the boat, fix anything that's broken. So there's a lot of stuff that happens in that off shift.
And did you rotate tasks between you then, so that you weren't always the cleaner or always the whatever?
To a certain extent, that certain things happen, because Debs and I were in the bow cabin, and Kerry and Dawn were in the stern cabin. So to a certain extent, so all of the navigation stuff was in the stern cabin. So Kerry would be doing more of that.
Right.
Whereas we had all the water maker and the mechanical stuff.
Yeah.
So we would be doing a bit more of that. So to a certain extent, and just moving up and down the boat is hard.
So,
like you're tripping out, you're stopping people from rowing every time you move up the boat because they have to stop. So it's really space constrained. So there's a bit of divide and conquer on that.
Yeah. I mean, talking about sleep as well, I think we probably every 24 hours, 3 hours sleep probably.
No, more than that.
Do you think? Yeah, I think about
3 hours sleep. I reckon you've got 7. Well, I got 7. Well, you do, but it's all broken.
It's all very broken. It's all very broken. So in the middle of the night when you're getting up for your shift, you have your alarm clock on about 2 a.m. Mine was 2 a.m. So, 10 minutes before you're sort of, oh, I need to get up.
Yeah.
You never get used to it. You never get used to that.
And do you get into deep sleep, or do you feel like you're in light sleep?
Well, I think you do get into deep sleep
definitely.
at night,
Yeah.
and then waking up in the middle of that deep sleep's the worst. Your body still did know daytime, because in the daytime you'd nap and you wouldn't feel quite so dreadful waking up. But at night, you were definitely in deep sleep and you were being ruthlessly woken from that. And that was the hard bit.
That was really hard.
And then having to pull all your wet weather gear, your wet weather gear back on, get yourself back up on the oars. We're making it sound really fun.
I know. But we were never dry either. Our skin was always wet and moist. It was really, it didn't matter because it was hot during the day, especially as we got closer to the middle of the Atlantic. It was really hot, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And there was condensation inside the cabins, just dripping sometimes, and it was just, we felt like, ooh.
Yeah, just permanently damp, very tropical. Yeah.
Yeah, very much so, very much so.
And then how did that affect your skin? So, you're rowing, you're using your hands all the time. Did they change somewhat from start to finish?
Yeah, so, I mean, I think Fee had the worst hands.
Yeah.
But we all had blisters, but we all had these bear grips, which helped, which is
it's like a pad.
Yeah.
Yes, I've seen that.
I mean, it was to me that was the single best bit of kit we had on the boat. Without that,
we would have been
because they really did protect your hands. But then the rest of the skin was
so the bottoms got hit slightly.
I'm not surprised. And that's a lot of sitting and chafing.
But it's also bruising. I mean, you're constantly sitting. I mean, really painful. It's actually more painful on your sit bones than the blisters. The blisters start to heal, but you never stop the constant sitting on your bottom. And I think on our social media you saw that we lost our seat pads very early on in the row, which were just a cushioning. So we were sitting on a quite hard seat.
How did that happen?
Oh, we had a rogue wave that came over and
knocked
we
the boat.
knocked down.
So the boat was knocked down to this angle, sort of to So
and then the water was coming on, and then everything just slipped off, as well as Deb's hanging out.
I mean, it was actually everything on the deck has to be lanyarded, like tied onto the boat.
Yeah.
The one thing we hadn't tied on were these seat cushions because we couldn't figure out how to do it. So that was silly. It was silly. It was silly. But everything else, every water bottle, every shoe, everything is tied onto the boat,
including us,
including you. I was about to say, and yourselves. Yeah.
At all times.
And so there was sort of a wire either side, was there, that you were hooked onto, so that when you moved, it moved with you. Is that right? I remember seeing something that was sort of wobbly either side of you that you tried to hold onto when you got to the end and didn't quite.
On the boat you have like a jack stay which runs down the sort of the bottom of the boat, and that's properly stress tested with tension, and that's the thing that you clip onto.
Right.
The guardrails, the sort of handrails that you saw are helpful to stop things falling out, but they're not the thing that's stress tested. So you clip on that as an additional when you're moving up and down the boat, but
they don't stop you from falling overboard. No, definitely not, because I nearly did that a couple of times. We all did, actually.
So scary moments then, you like that tipping that I mean, were you thinking about capsize at that point? Were you in readiness for it? I presume these things also happen so quickly that you don't really get the chance.
I was in the cabin. I didn't know if we had capsized. Because you're so disorientated at that point. I mean, we had quite a lot of these knockdowns, but that one was really quite. And I thought that we'd capsized because you can't really tell. You're going so far over. So yeah, that's quite. But I'm not sure. In theory, it's scary, but I think that at the time you're just dealing with the situation.
Yeah. So at the beginning, when we're all sort of in the tent on the day when we're leaving, the tension in the tent was palpable. Everyone was so nervous, and that's what you're worried about, is those sorts of things. But actually, when you're in it, you just have to deal with it. So we would just like, oh well, there's nothing we can do.
There's another way.
Yes, quick. And that was it, So
and that's you've signed up for that. You know these things could happen. You've done as much research. You've grilled Dawn to into reality what could happen. But you're right. I think with anything in life that is nerve-wracking, it's always about the before and never about the doing so much. It can be hard and scary, but once you're going, you usually then look back and think, okay, the level of worry wasn't worth it because it isn't commensurate. And that's down to our brains trying to keep us safe. And that makes sense. And thank goodness we have that ability to keep ourselves safe. But what you're saying is how important it is to see past that. And you've done that through lots of planning. You've done that through doing your homework, feeling well prepared, trying to visualize yourself there. And also the fact you're in a team means you're accountable to each other, but you're supporting each other through that. And I presume there are quite a lot of conversations about it beforehand. And I think that's such a good example for many things that we do in life. If we're struggling with fear over something, it's really important to get help, get prepared to really think it through, but think it through how it really is going to be. And there's risks in so many things. There were big risks in what you did, but you'd calculated as many of them as you could so that you felt you were in control if things had happened. Is that fair to say?
Another fact, I think that's absolutely all spot on. But another factor is that there is no escape. Once you're on the Atlantic, the quickest way to get off is to get to Antigua.
Yeah.
You can't row back because you're rowing into headwinds at that point. So to a certain extent, that makes your mindset, there is no option. I've just got to go on. And sometimes I think in life we have too many options. And it's just like we've committed to the goal. This is it. There's no going back. And
totally. And you can only control what you can control. And that is, they said this to us at the beginning, control the controllables. And that is so spot on because you can't control what the water's going to do, the weather, the wind.
You did talk to the wind quite a lot.
I spoke to the wind quite a bit.
Which kind of wind was that, Kerry?
Well, both actually. No, we had no wind for 4 weeks.
We had wind anxiety.
Yeah, totally.
Because you want the wind, you want that help, and it apparently it was one of the least windy years, wasn't it? So really hard.
We thought it was one of the slowest races, but actually it wasn't.
Ah, okay.
Even though we had no wind for 4 weeks, as a fleet, we all finished within a certain period of time. So it was one of the second or third fastest in the.
Well, there were no world records.
There were no.
Because for the faster boats, it wasn't.
No,
it wasn't quicker. But as a fleet overall.
And how many boats were there in total?
There are 38 boats in total, but 36 finished.
Yeah, I saw a single guy not finishing. I didn't realise there was another one. But I mean, still, that's absolutely incredible. You would have thought that there would be more people dropping out.
Again, that's because of preparation and planning. And, safety is key, and at the beginning you're thinking, gosh, it's a lot of planning, but it's absolutely crucial when you're on the ocean.
You're glad you did.
Just how well prepared we were. And actually as a group as well, because, you were talking about support earlier. Support is really key on board, and if you're not a cohesive group, then lots of things can go.
And I think you did see, I mean, it's a very intense way to be with people. And I think, some crews didn't have, as great dynamics as we did. And I think that actually shows in the performance as well. Like, people.
I can imagine. Yeah. Yeah, because I'd say almost more than half of what you did was a brain challenge. If you see a mental, a mind thing, and you were relying on your physicality, you trained your physicality, you both knew you could do it realistically because you've both done quite a lot of challenges, you're very fit people, but you weren't sure about your resilience. You weren't sure that you could do that amount of time with a set group of people and get that far, but you were determined. You're both very determined people. And I think, again, that's the case. A lot of these things, it's more about mind over matter. You've got to decide, you've got to make a choice about how you're going to see it and push on. Just taking a quick pause because I want to tell you about a new offer exclusively for listeners of this podcast. If you'd like to improve your mobility, strength, and learn more about moving well in daily life now and to train for your 90s, come and move with me in the Reclaim Movement membership. There's weekly live coaching in term time with hundreds of replays available, as well as hordes of 5 and 10 minute mini movement videos to follow throughout your day. I'm offering you a 15% discount on your first month's membership on top of the 7-day free trial. Go to reclaimmovement.co.uk/membership to create your account and quote the code podcast15. Let's move together to feel better and keep doing all the things you love. And I can imagine that if there's a dynamic on the boat where someone's not quite in that headspace, that can really affect the atmosphere on the boat, because it's tiny. It's not something you can ignore. You can't go to the next room to get away from it.
I think the mindset that I had going in was that I don't quite know what this is going to throw at me, but I'm confident that I can deal with whatever it throws at me. And I think you have to have that sense of inner confidence to be able to take on this challenge that you never know what it is, but you need to believe in yourself that you can do this. But I think that, a lot of, the extremes that people are experiencing leads to some quite extreme mental health responses. And, we were fortunate that, we didn't have that, but
again, I keep going back to planning and preparation, but we did speak about this quite a lot beforehand and what our goal was, and that's hugely important mentally, is that we all on the same page. So we all said that we were all going to finish. We just wanted to get across safely and remain as friends afterwards. I mean, as it turned out, we actually won. So, the women's class, and so that was brilliant.
It was incredible.
It was our goal.
It wasn't your goal, but you were. I was really pleased. You talked before about this being something to prove about midlife as well, and the other female teams were a mix of ages, but there was no one of. And your whole team is sort of midlife 50s, aren't they? I think you're all there or thereabouts around the 50 mark.
Yeah.
And the fact that you bossed it and you actually were the winners is testament to the fact that you can do anything, and that was so wonderful. And absolutely, it's never the reason that you do something. And we all at home just wanted you to finish. That's all we wanted. Well, not even that, just to get across, just to be safe. That was the baseline. But, seeing you holding up that trophy was, the absolute icing on the cake. And we all believed that you could do it, particularly early on when you took a good tack and sort of, and I don't know if Dawn was seeing that ahead, that would be a good thing, or if that was a team effort, but you sort of struck out early, and that seemed to serve you for the rest of the way. Is that right?
Yeah, I mean, that was a team effort. We have to big up Mr. Eddie Steele here, who was our weather router extraordinaire, who was absolutely phenomenal, may I say. With him and Dawn, amazing team. But of course, we were rowing as well, so we had to get out in front. So it was a huge team effort. Would you agree?
No, absolutely. It took everything, and it was that mix of physicality, but tactical, analytics, the whole thing to get us with that lead.
Yeah, that was amazing. So tell me a bit about the highs of the journey, the unexpected highs as well. There was a lot of lovely stuff on there about looking at the night sky, and sunsets and sunrises, and obviously nature, because you couldn't get closer in a more lovely, natural way. No fuel, nothing like that, to being that close to nature. Tell us a bit about about that?
Oh, that to me was the most amazing thing. Is actually being in the middle of the Atlantic, just with the sea. I mean, the sea sounds really odd, but for me personally, the sea was different every single day. So people say, "Oh, was it boring? Just seeing nothing but water." But no, because every time it was completely different. The sea changed, didn't it? Every time.
Yeah.
And we saw pilot whales, we saw dolphins. We didn't see a lot, to be fair, did we? But not much what we saw of birds.
But and lots of shooting stars.
Oh my gosh, yeah, totally. Satellites and strange
phosphorescence.
Yes. And the sky was amazing. Seeing the weather systems coming in as well, that was phenomenal.
I think one of the things for me being in the middle of the ocean was that sense of just actually how small we were, and that the ocean was doing its own thing and we were kind of irrelevant, and we were totally irrelevant in that, and that just that sense of perspective and an appreciation for the planet. I don't understand that to sound like, but
absolutely.
The planet is massive and beautiful and amazing, and we are inconsequential to it. It's just going to do its thing, and we can't control the wind, Kerry, no matter how much you try. Praying to the wind god.
Come on, wind, where are you?
But yeah,
no, it's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah,
phenomenal. Just to be a little dot in that ocean, and just to think that there's nothing around you. Somebody, who's never been in this position before. It's just, and I was very privileged that I went into the water as well to clean the boat. So, and to have like 5 kilometers below you, just like water, it's just like, oh my gosh, it's just incredible.
So you were cleaning off barnacles or that kind of thing, is that right?
Yeah. So we had to, because that would slow the boat down. So we did that. It was 2 weeks in, I think, and there were quite a lot of barnacles on the bottom of the boat. So we did it 4 times.
Oh my goodness! Yeah, gripping on for a ride. Very clever.
Yeah.
It makes me think of is it the snail and the whale?
Oh, well, I knew you were going to say that. Yeah.
I know. I don't know. I haven't thought of it before. It just popped into my head. But yeah, it's because I think hitching a lift. I think that was the line in it. And obviously, Sophie, you turned 50, and that is. You say you didn't particularly celebrate it in big style, but how did it sort of make you reflect? Because it is, it's an interesting birthday, having obviously been to it myself as well. It's an interesting birthday, but was it quite different in that circumstance?
I mean, in all honesty, there wasn't much celebration going on at that point. I think I was still feeling quite seasick. So yeah, the idea of the champagne did not really fit. We were prepared, but not really looking for that at that point. But yeah, no, it's a big milestone, and just that sense that, I think when you're doing something extreme, it's like, well, actually, it doesn't, maybe you can be depressed by being 50, but it's like we're doing something incredible, and our bodies, I don't think there's a gratitude to our bodies, and that they can do this, and appreciation of, rather than thinking, oh God, what everything's failing and my body's crumbling. It's actually just look at the amazing things my body can do, and I think that's at our age, I think that's really important to be able to do, to be thankful. Well, not everyone's going to row an ocean, but be thankful for everything your body can do.
Absolutely, and it goes back to what you do, Wendy, with your movements, and just do whatever you can do. We rode across the Atlantic. Not everybody wants to do that, as Fee said, but just keep moving. Do what you can do. Just keep that body moving.
And celebrate what you can do. I think it is. It's come back to the mental side of it, that it's so important. We're so good at picking out the negatives. We're so good at comparing ourselves to the next person who can do this X, Y, and Z, and we can't. But what about what we are capable of? And it, even in some very tough situations, people still have capability to move in certain ways and make change. And that progress, you proved it was a long episode, but you proved that you could still train for something, and that you could stay the distance, and you're all the better for it. And we are all huge hats off to you, clearly, and just such huge respect and admiration for such a task. And we came to one of both actually fundraising events beforehand. And at the one at Fee's house, you showed the video of other people taking part in the world's toughest row. And it had been a really lovely event up to that point. There was lots of, trying to fundraise, lots of sort of games and fun things. And then when you put that on, it was incredible how quiet the crowd went. You could have heard a pin drop and the sort of sigh, the oohs and the ahs, because the reality of what you were going to do suddenly really set in for people. And I think even your face as well, even though you've probably seen it time and time again. And yeah, hopefully the fundraising went up straight afterwards, because it is no mean feat. My goodness, it's, to keep rowing for 3 hours full stop, let alone then keep, doing that is quite incredible. So tell me what you think you've learned about yourself through this episode, that could potentially be inspiring for others.
Well, I think actually we're all, as a group, quite mentally strong, to be honest with you. And we know there was a lot of, it was really tough. It was really brutal. And because of no wind, which you keep mentioning, it was really tough. So, but we kept on going. And it was just sort of like, even though you had a negative mindset sometimes, you're thinking, oh gosh, this is really difficult. We just still carried on. We had no choice really, but in life, sometimes there is no choice but to go forward and move forward. So, and that is the thing. I think our resilience shone through in this, actually, that we just kept going and going. And in life, you have to keep just trying and trying and try your best. And that is exactly what we did. And I think as a group, that's how we achieved what we did.
And I think that, it's that sense. I've come away with that sense. I kind of, we went into it the slight sense that we could do something really difficult, but that real belief now that, you really can do whatever you want to turn your mind to. And I think I've come back feeling a bit more perspective on the small stuff in life. The small stuff matters to us, it does, but trying to keep that in perspective, and, keep that bigger picture of, there are really tough things out there, and everyone's dealing with tough stuff, but, just trying to keep all of that in perspective. And, also I think we both had just a sort of a real focus when you're out there on your own, the things that you really miss are your family and your friends. And we all know that, right? If I asked you, Wendy, what matters to you most, you'd say that, but that real sense of feeling and reprioritization of that, and really sort of coming back to focus it. So I think, was it a life-changing experience? Yes, it was, but it was a recalibration and a refocus on the things that give us strength, give us energy, but the things that really matter to us.
Yeah, exactly. And we were saying as well on the boat about being productive. We are we work as well, so life doesn't have to be about productivity all the time. Like every day we was like, we have to get things done, do this, do that. And actually we spoke about it on the boat, saying that, we just need to come back and actually just enjoy our days and actually don't feel that we have to achieve all the time. And that was one thing that I took away from that. It's like, I can now actually relax and actually thinking about myself and my actual mental well-being for a time, for an hour a day or whatever, taking time out is really important.
Yeah.
And that is huge, I think. I knew that before, but actually this was...
I think also there is something about those sort of 3-hour periods where you're just doing nothing, right? You're literally rowing. And I've come back with a much more relaxed sense of time, like without this constant time pressure, because and that ability just to drift or not be productive all the time, but just to be with that time and space and not have to fill every minute.
Yeah.
And I think that's been really helpful.
Yeah.
I think that's a really good message to people to hear, because the amount of time that we are spinning plates, and it's not necessarily being, big exercises and running around the place, but it's just that, as you say, sort of the mental spinning plates, and how important it is to just step off the merry-go-round sometimes and just be. And I think a lot of people, they go and sit in the garden or go out on a walk and just sit for 5 minutes. Even that 5 minutes will be almost agony to them, because something's not happening or getting done, or the to-do list is flying. And yet it's so important for us to be able to shut off, because there's so much, what I was going to ask you as well, there's so much incoming in life now. There are so many messages thrown at you all the time. There's so much possibility to take information in. And you had none of that. You had, or very little, apart from the information that really mattered about the wind, about, your food, about the basics. But you didn't have that. And did you feel that when you got back that was a bit of a bombardment? Because certainly, if we can skip to when you did come in, from looking at the way that you got off the boat, clearly you were straight with your loved ones, which, it was about, 11:30 at night here, and we'd been waiting for you to come in, waiting for the live stream to happen, which was so great to be able to see it live. And all my kids and my husband and I were on the bed upstairs waiting with the laptop, and just seeing you hugging your loved ones, and I'm feeling it now. Literally, I was just pouring, and they were looking at me going, "Mom, are you all right?" But they could understand it because it was so huge, and you could tell there were no words needed. It was physical. It was purely raw physical when you came in. But also seeing you Bambi-like walking, none of you, to be honest, Kerry, I thought you looked absolutely incredible. I was like, she doesn't look that different. She looks a bit skinny, but she doesn't look that different, because your smile, as ever, was literally, it was so big. Fee, your hair just made me laugh so much. You were like Robinson, whatever the female version of that Crusoe. You looked absolutely. But the person that really stood out to me was Debs. She just looked shocked the whole time. It was like, it was such an onslaught. And I just kept looking at her eyes and just thinking, I cannot imagine what is happening in her brain, and how you were all processing fireworks going off. And I don't know if there's music, everyone clapping, and then your photos being taken. It was so intense. Can you even remember it?
Vividly.
Yeah.
We'll never experience anything like that ever again. It was absolutely phenomenal. The moment we got into English Harbour, the boats were honking their horns. It was just like people's happy hour in Antigua. So everybody was there. It was such a party atmosphere, wasn't it? And so, we all dealt with it very differently, obviously, but it was still overwhelming for everybody, because everything was just suddenly there. We had seen nobody for all that time, apart from one boat, just as we were coming in. And that was it, so it was like, oh wow, all these cameras in our faces and people and wanting to talk to us. We were like, and we can't walk. So it was amazing.
Yeah, I think it was. You picture that moment. You spend a lot of time at that moment. And actually, sometimes those things are then disappointing. But it just wasn't. It was more than we could have imagined. Yeah. And to be honest, there were lots of people there, but all I was focused on was my family and friends who were there.
And we could hear them as well. We could hear some of the voices. I could hear Eddie. I could hear one of your daughters, and it was so surreal hearing that, but just hearing the emotion in their voices. It was really intense, really intense. And all your well wishers, everyone that was watching you from afar online, and all the messages coming in. It was quite something. So there was lots of love being poured from all angles onto you, and we felt it was wonderful, because we felt like we were there with you, even though we weren't.
And that is amazing, because we said it at the time on that night, actually, that the support we've received from everybody, from you, Wendy, from all our friends and families, it's actually been incredible, and that is what's kept us going as well. If we hadn't got the support of each other as well on the boat and everybody around us, we would not have won, or we would not have got across that ocean. So support is absolutely key in every part of life. Mentally, it's hugely important, and without support, we won't be able to do anything. So I want to thank everybody, because it was just brilliant, wasn't it? It was amazing. Amazing.
And so a very good natural segue then into the charities that you were. So the main reason that you were doing this was to bring awareness to mental health, and you picked 3 amazing charities, one of which AJ has been on this podcast. Actually, wasn't particularly talking about that. She was talking about something different. But so if you want to listen back a few episodes, then AJ from the Project PT in Oxford, that was a great conversation about kids. But tell us about all 3 charities and why you chose to support them.
So we were rowing for mental health and wellbeing. That was our main goal. So we are called Ocean Empower. So we want everyone to be empowered to speak up about their mental health and get that support that they need. So we were raising money and awareness for the Charlie Waller Trust, the Project PT, and a veteran charity called Phoenix Heroes. All 3 are amazing charities, different charities. So Project PT and Phoenix Heroes are community-based. Phoenix Heroes help veterans reintegrate into civilian life. You know about Project PT help, where you can tell.
So we specifically were funding a project that works with girls who are at risk of disadvantage, but at risk of criminal exploitation, using physical activity as a way to build self-esteem, confidence, give them qualifications through mentoring and support and physical activity. So what was that?
Yeah, and then the Charlie Waller Trust, you actually, it's all about communicating and getting young people to speak up about their mental health. It's about talking to each other, so sparking conversation. So what we wanted people to do is speak up, spark conversation, and get support. And support is key, as we said before. So getting support from any one of these charities would really help, and actually can change people's lives.
Yeah, absolutely. And you've raised 60,000, is that right? Is it more?
I think 57,000.
Nearly 60.
Actually, yeah.
I'd just say one of the nicest things that we had on the boat was that the Phoenix Heroes, a lot of the veterans have written letters for us about their stories and how the support that we were providing, what that meant to them. And we were just in tears every time. We had to ration the letter. Can we have another letter, please?
Yeah.
And it was just so heartwarming to hear those stories. And it gave us such a boost on the boat because we felt like we could really see the benefit of what we were doing. So that was really
and we received a message this week as well from Phoenix Heroes saying about how Steve, one of the guys that came to the charity event, one of our fundraising events, and he talks about us and how we, we did it for him, and what we have done through raising the money has actually helping people like him and other people. So for us, that's incredible. I mean, for me, that was one of the reasons why I raised was for mental health, just to get people to talk about it a little bit more. Because we need to reduce that stigma. So it's so important that everyone speaks up, and including ourselves. I think that's one of the most important things that I think I learned from the boat as well, is actually being honest about your own feelings and thoughts, and actually being able to feel confident and comfortable to actually talk.
Well, there's one thing to say beforehand. Our aim is to stay friends, to finish and to stay friends. But the reality of actually making that happen is something else, because there's huge, you've all got similar goals and so on. But, I well know when I'm tired, I'm quite a different person. And so navigating relationships through adversity, you were modeling that as well. And the very fact that you did come back friends means you will have learned a lot about relationships that you probably didn't know in that way before, because you learned about yourself. And as you say, Kerry, you realized the need for honesty. And I think we need that to a level with everyone we love, everyone around us, but most importantly with ourselves, because it's so easy to hide behind what we should be saying, or how we want to be seen, or how we think we've been seen. And actually, those are all the root problems that can create mental health issues. Whereas when we're honest with ourselves and with others, that sort of being that genuine, it's refreshing. It can be hard, but it's refreshing.
And that's what we're saying about being empowered. Actually, you need to be empowered to be able to be honest with yourself, to be able to be honest with somebody else, tell them how you're actually feeling. Because if you're not, you won't be able to do any of that. And so,
and we had moments on the boat where everyone had moments of tension and frustration, but I think what we were quite good at was going, I can't talk to you right now, and I'm just dealing with this, and give me some space. Or being really honest about, actually, when you said that or did that, that made me feel like this. And and we had to resolve those things, because if those fester on a boat for 44 days, that's not a healthy situation. But we were respectful of that, and everything then was solved, pretty quickly.
And knowing that that's normal. That is normal in life. Everyone triggers each other all the time. Everyone, the amount of times I splutter over saying something and it comes out the wrong way, and the intention was never bad, but it comes out absolutely the wrong way. But knowing to quickly jump in and say, actually, that isn't what I meant. This is what I meant, or this is why I said it. Learning those things, it's absolutely key to then being able to have these healthy relationships. So,
And also, because we were, you have to, we were so sleep deprived, food deprived, wind deprived. I mean, literally, it was, so actually being able to deal with our emotions during this race was hard. It was really hard, but and it's like in everyday life that we can, it is the same, because we're all rushing around, we're all tired, we're all stressed, and that is society as a whole at the moment. People are stressed, and you've got to be able to deal with your emotions. So you've got to be able to talk to somebody about it. You've got to be able to share your thoughts and feelings. So it's I think it's been amazing.
Well, I think we had nowhere to run, but maybe that was a good thing, because it made us address things. And maybe in life we have too many places to run and hide. But
that is so true, actually. Exactly that. Because we are able to hide behind things in real life, but actually on the boat we couldn't. We had to deal with things there and then, and I think that is hugely important. A huge lesson, actually.
Yeah, and then you always learn about yourself, and that's the point, isn't it? If we don't learn about ourselves, we can't move forward. So what have been the best things about coming home and normal life?
Ooh, eating.
I'm going to say my bed.
I would say my bed, I think, as well.
Fresh food.
And just being with friends and family. Just simple things. When I first came back, it was just the simplicity of life. I did a lot of baking.
Oh my goodness.
It's like simple pleasures, really. Actually walking on land is quite nice.
Yes, and actually walking.
And birds. Walking, yes. Yeah, trees and birds,
Yeah.
Simple stuff.
Yeah, but that's the best. It's the essence of everything. Without all of that, where are we? So would you ever row again?
I would.
I don't mean as in a small thing, but a big one.
I came back saying I just would not row an ocean. I think I maybe I could. But actually what I think is there's so many other things to do. It's maybe there's something else next.
So what's maybe there's something else, because you've both done some big challenges before, so you need to think of something different, don't you?
Well, there's an amazing challenge actually that I'm thinking I might do, which looks quite interesting. It's running 7 marathons in 7 continents in 7 days.
Wow.
Back to back, you get from one to the other kind of thing. Oh my goodness! Wow.
I'm looking into that.
Okay. Can you top that, Fee? No.
Elephant of a dock.
Yes.
The wine region. 23 wine stops. That's for this year, but I'm probably going to get into doing a lot more sailing. So ultimately the plan is to sail around the world, but in stages at the moment.
So the seasickness didn't put you off then?
Well, do you know what? The thing is, that wasn't the worst thing that was happening at the time. Right. So it's like, yes, will I be seasick? Yes, but can you deal with that? Are there other things? Yeah.
But what's really interesting is that even though she was seasick, she still rowed.
Yeah.
So
I didn't feel sick when I rode.
No, that's true.
Yeah, and your mind, as you say, your mind's on something else. You're focused. So it can take away, and that's often the thing is, if we sit with our pain or our discomfort or whatever, you're going to focus in on it. Of course you are, but
And
distraction can be helpful.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, for all of us actually on that boat, Dawn was unwell. She rode throughout her, Debs was unwell. She rode, like everybody just rode. Everybody we never missed a shift. And that's,
it's amazing.
It's again, planning and actually having these rules in place before you even get onto a boat. In life in general, preparation and planning are key. So, I think it's testament to our amazing boat.
So if there's a message that you'd like to leave people with, particularly about mental health, I think, mental health and movement, and the benefit of movement, what would you say?
Well, for me, I would say that actually movement for me is key to my mental health, because if I do not move every single day, then I fear that I become anxious and a little bit low actually. So if you can just move, it doesn't matter what you do. If you just do something, go out in the garden, do a little bit of gardening, just do something, even going to the shops, whatever, just do something, and it will really help your mental health. And also, not related to a movement, but if there's anybody listening to this and they are in crisis and they are feeling low or anxious, or please seek help, and even in your community, speak to a friend, speak to somebody, because it could just change your life. It really, really could. So for me, that's, and movement is part of that as well. Just, do something. You could join, a community group and just, walking group or something.
Yeah.
But hugely important, hugely.
Well, I think I'd echo all of that, and movement is so key to my well-being, and I've noticed since I've come back that I just need to be outside in nature a lot more, moving, just walking. And I hadn't realised why that was, but I think it's because we spent so much time outside in nature, and it's somewhere now. It's so fundamental to me to be outside early in the morning as well, just to set yourself up for the day. But it's so fundamental to my well-being. And so I encourage everyone to do that.
And it's natural. That's where we came from. That's the way, for most of our time on this planet, we've not been in these concrete boxes. So it makes sense when you're kind of going back to your roots, and it feels so good, and being able to tap into that is key. So, and it's, May is National Walking Month. When this goes out, that might have just passed, but I think, if we can get together for a walk, I'm all in.
Wendy, what you're doing, with your movement actually is amazing, because you're going outside, those little things, just like getting on top of tree trunks and things like that, just enjoying it. Just go out and enjoy yourself. It doesn't have to be a run. It doesn't have to be rowing across the Atlantic. Just go outside and just enjoy it and just have fun, and that's exactly what it's about, just having fun. And this whole experience for me was amazing, just because it was fun. We laughed a lot. We did laugh, didn't we? We laughed. It was hard. It was absolutely brutal, but we laughed and we enjoyed it. And then we've come back and we're friends, and it's just been an incredible experience. And so I would just say, have fun and enjoy your life. Enjoy everything.
Yeah. Amazing. I'm really, really enjoyed talking to you both about it, and I've purposely held back from getting in touch and asking so that we could do it right on here, so we could hear it all. And thank you so much for your time and sharing your story. It's so valuable. If people still want to donate, are those donation channels still open, if you like? So if we put the links in, then I think they still can. So if this has moved you or interested you, or one of the charities particularly has interested you, then please go to the show notes and the links will be in there. And if you're thinking of doing a challenge yourself, maybe this will be fuel to your fire, and off you go. And it doesn't matter what the challenge is. The challenge can be a 5K walk. It doesn't matter what it is. The point is, could you do it? Do you think you could? And if there's something telling you that you could, then go for it. But plan and prepare. and don't rely on the wind.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you.
Thank you. I hope you've enjoyed listening, and if you have, you can help by doing 3 things. First, press the follow button to tell podcast platforms you want to listen again. Second, please give the show a 5-star rating and leave a review about why you liked it. And third, I'd love you to share it with friends and family or on your socials, for which I'm truly thankful. Finally, if this podcast is making you want to start reclaiming your own movement, join me in the Reclaim Movement membership for classes, both live and by replay, and countless videos of mini movement breaks to add into your daily life, covering practical and fun, important natural movements. Visit reclaimmovement.co.uk/membership to get started with your 7-day free trial. See you for the next episode, and thank you so much for listening.